Local history, local culture, local events, your community. This is the Joe Kelly Show.
Hi there, everybody. Welcome to the show. Chris Sagaas is our guest. Chris is the Executive Director of the Utica Public Library. We're going to be talking about books. We're going to be talking about some upcoming programming at the library and a bunch of other stuff. But before we do that, we're going to say good to see you again, my friend.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. You kind of threw me off a little bit because I was going to open up with a different question, but you brought some very nice memorabilia with you. We're going to talk about that memorabilia. When you were on the show last time, we talked about the history of the building of the Utica Public Library on Genesee Street. What is that, 333 or
303 through 305.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is, it's also listed as 295 Genesee Street with the assessor's rolls.
Okay.
So it's one of those strange things where there's multiple numbers,
right?
3 different numbers for one building.
But in any event, it's a historic building. It's a landmark building. Yep. And we talked about the laying of the cornerstone when you were here last.
Yeah.
And give the date of that.
So it's funny because it's almost 121 years ago to today.
Mm-hmm.
We actually have in our full collection of our historical memorabilia, this was the trowel that was actually used, and it's in the hand of Nicholas Devereaux in the photo we have of the laying of the cornerstone, and it was on May 4th, 1903. So it's May 7th, 2024 when we're taping this. So almost 121 years, a little over 121 years ago, the cornerstone was laid, and it's been an operating public library since then. So certainly the Utica Public Library predates our building. They were chartered in 1893, and I think we've talked about the multiple locations throughout the years.
With 1,000 books. I think they started off with 1,000 books.
Yeah, and now we have, it's funny, this came up, we have about 60,000 books in our collection. Mm-hmm. We also have a bunch of books, I should say circulating items in our collection. We also have DVDs, thousands of DVDs. We also have stuff that's not necessarily circulating, but part of our genealogy and local history collection. So yeah, we have, a lot of materials, a lot of old cool materials, such as this trowel, and the photograph that actually depicts the date of the event. But yeah, it's great to have this stuff in our collection.
When you say 60,000 books in your collection, do you mean in the building?
Yeah, in the building. All of our materials that do circulate are housed in our one spot. We do have, like I was mentioning, a bunch of things that are uncatalogued. We're constantly going through the process of making sure that our inventory is accurate. We had a really big inventory about 4 years ago, but we've undertaken, I think we've talked about in this in the past too, really getting a handle on what do we have in our archives, what do we want to make sure is cataloged, preserved, and then searchable and findable by researchers.
Is any of that digitized?
We have some stuff digitized. Part of this process we're going through right now is figuring out, well, what else do we want to get digitized? People are always looking for old historical yearbooks from the schools they went to. Yeah. We still get donations of those. That's something we'd like to digitize. I mean, for us, I don't want to say a challenge for Utica Public Library and most libraries is figuring out the most effective way to continue to be open to the public, provide the services they count on when they come in, and then figuring out what's the extra stuff we can do to make ourselves discoverable online and elsewhere. So that's it's in process, and I feel like I say that every time I come on here, but we're constantly doing the work of making our collections available.
It's not a inexpensive process, is it, Chris?
No, and there is some grant funding available, but not significant grant funding. One thing that we've looked at, we revisit every few years, is getting a lot of the old ODs digitized and searchable electronically. It's prohibitively expensive right now. However, SUNY Poly actually every year or so they break off little chunks of historic Utica newspapers that they digitize and make available through New York Heritage, which is the online repository for for these types of things.
Anybody that wants to go in there and search old ODs, I know Frank Tomeno is always going through old copies of the Observer-Dispatch for his history column. Yep. I can recall Judge Walsh spending countless hours in there researching old Utica newspapers. Is the people that want to do that kind of research now, they could go in and go on the microfilm machine still, right?
Yeah, we have publicly available microfilm machines on our first floor in our computer lab. We also have a newer machine up in our genealogy, local history room on the second floor of the building, which is also something I should point out. We do like to have, we have several volunteers who come in and give of their own time to help people with their historical research. I think I've told you before too, we don't have a certified or official professional genealogist on staff. One of our volunteers actually she's coming back to the library this summer, and we've spoken with her, and she's going to be doing, as yet to be determined, intro genealogy, start your family tree. She's published multiple family histories on her own family. So that's another thing we want to be able to, especially during the summer, we have people coming back to town to visit the old homestead, to visit family members, and then kind of continue that research. When
you get on the microfilm, one of the microfilm machines, can you take a picture of that?
Yep. Yeah, you could. In fact, our newer machine upstairs, you can scan the image that you're looking at on the computer. You can essentially scan it and save it to a thumb drive, so it's portable. You could get a screen capture of it and email it to yourself. We oftentimes we probably get at least one a day, a question about something that's involving us looking at the old microfilm and then sending that image to somebody who's not actually standing in front of us. So we do have those capabilities.
So if somebody whose family have moved away, they're in another state, they have a question that can be found on an old Observer-Dispatch, for example. Would one of your people go to that, find it?
Yeah, that's the kind of, we do a lot of those lookups. I mean, the difficulty a lot of times with a request is that if it's, the less specific it is, the more time it takes. So we've had some people request, I need an obituary between 1920 and 1950. That's going to be a little more difficult.
Very time consuming.
Yeah, if somebody says it's in this week or on this date, there's still, back in historically, the indexing wasn't as great, so our librarians would actually do the indexing and still continue to do the indexing of obituaries. I think we've talked about this here before as well. The newspaper is becoming less and less a source for people to find obituaries. I know that when I look through, I don't just check the OD anymore. I check all of the local funeral homes who still do a really good job of putting them up, but the newspapers are ceasing to become the first stop to look for those items.
When we come back, we're going to be continuing our talk with Chris Sagaas. He's in charge of 60,000 books down there at the Utica Public Library, but he's also got access to a whole heck of a lot more books. We'll find out what he's reading. Short break, right back. And welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. Chris Sagaas is our guest. Chris is the Executive Director of Utica Public Library down on Genesee Street, 303, 304, 305, whatever it is. But whatever it is, it's right next door, Chris, to a building that has been in tough shape for a lot of years. There was a fire at that Knights of Columbus building down there, and nothing has been done, nothing that I can see anyway, for years. That's got to be a pain for the Utica Public Library.
It's a pain for us. It's a pain for the DeSales building and Thea and their tenants as well. And certainly, and this is something that I also wanted to mention too, with the DRI money that's come into downtown on the Genesee Street corridor, both at Munson, Thea, the DeSales building, and the library, we're concerned. All of the neighbors and the tenants are concerned that that building continues to fall into disrepair. We've had conversations with the city. They're interested in doing something about it. So I think we're encouraged by that. So we certainly think that if all this money is being invested to beautify and improve the physical structures that are drawing people to the downtown anchor institutions, that there needs to be a solution that works, and makes and improves on that.
Yeah, right across the street, our kitty corner, is a lot of work going on at Munson.
They're going to get a whole new terrace greenscape. They have brand new front steps. We just finished at the library. We finalized our DRI project, which was about $120,000. We basically rehabilitated and reconstructed, Lupini Construction did it, but the 4 stone pillars that are original to the construction of the building. And we have a brand new, really nice sidewalk entryway up to the front entrance of the building. So we're pleased with it. It makes significant improvements to the pavement that was there before. It's going to be easier to clean, should be longer lasting and less. The big problem that we're having, and it's certainly seen in our back parking lot, which is where we have another project coming up, the freeze-thaw cycle, the dumping of snow and then the ice and then the melting of it is wreaking havoc on paved surfaces that are extremely important for parking and people getting into and out of spaces. So it's going to cost us more money in the future, unfortunately.
What's your other project?
So another part of the historic structure of our building, for people who are familiar with the rear entrance, which was also a main entrance at one point, there's a wrought iron railing around the back of it that's fallen into disrepair, and then that moat wall, we call it the moat wall because it's not filled with water in the moat, but it is an empty space between the parking lot and the building. We are going to basically repair that wall because it's been falling in and crumbling, and there's some stairs. It's a safety liability concern, but the great thing about it is that the plans we have in place, they've been approved by New York State Historic Preservation Office, which is always a hurdle for us if we use public money and we're on the state and national register. We're concerned about it, but it's extra work for us to make sure that it meets their standards and requirements. But it's going to look really good. The 70% of our traffic comes through the back of the library. We're going to be creating, this is the first step of what we hope will be a major redesign of the whole parking lot and the entryway for people into the building, where 70% of the people come through. It's going to look great. The drawings look great, and every drawing we've gotten from our architect ends up looking even better when it's happening in real life.
Will you still be using the door you're using in the back?
Yep, we're still going to be using that door. The longer range plan is to actually reconstruct and improve on that actual accessible entrance. It is the only accessible entrance. We're going to need to have that entrance still available and or fixed. And then the longest range plan that I think I could say is that we still want to explore the possibility of having an ADA compliant elevator that gets our patrons to our second floor. We do have an elevator that works. It's in great condition. We do a really good job upkeeping it with our service provider and contractor. But we have a lot of people who come into our building who want to get to the second floor for things like our flower show, things like job fairs, things like the Utica City School District Art Show, things like the event that we'll probably talk about a little bit, our author event. We want to improve the accessibility both physically and, as I was mentioning before, of content that the library owns either on-site or off-site.
And there's a third floor there too.
Yeah, the third floor it's become kind of our archival space. It's a really cool spot. It's where it's where we're actually able to lay out the old blueprints that we have. We have a lot of old stuff that could, it doesn't get in any better shape with each passing day. So it's kind of become a workspace. We've had some interns from Hamilton College come in. They're helping us inventory and figure out where all of our stuff is, what the condition of it is. We also, to circle back to the microfilm, one of the things that happens with microfilms that's stored in boxes that are used for 50, 60, 70 plus years, the boxes fall apart and some of the film actually starts to deteriorate. So we kind of have we've started a study of how much longer is the film going to last. We found that actually improving the quality of some of the boxes that we stored in is going to help preserve that for future research.
You mentioned a author that's coming down. I think she's coming in June, is she
Yep,
not?
she's just a little bit over a month. Yeah, Jacqueline Woodson is coming to the library on June 11th. We do have, I definitely want people to hear about this. That event is open. We have special invitees to that event, but we also have we're doing a raffle. At least 30 seats. You just have to come into the library to put your name on the sign-up sheet. There are still some seats left, but they're going fast. So we anticipate we'll probably have over 100 people at that signing. The really cool thing, that evening she's going to be interviewed by a professor at MVCC, and then she's going to do a book signing. We've engaged with Barnes & Noble in New Hartford. They're going to come and sell the books. So people are going to be able to get a book and have the author sign it. The thing that I love about this event is that the next day, so she's staying overnight in downtown Utica. The next day, she's addressing 1,600 fifth and sixth graders from Utica City School District at MVCC. So MVCC and Utica City School District have been amazing to work with. We're encouraged about our relationship with UCSD on a number of fronts, but we're really excited to be able to provide this to the city.
And tell people who she is.
So Jacqueline Woodson is an award-winning author. She's written about 20 books. The book she's focusing on, that is the 10-year anniversary of her most famous book called Brown Girl Dreaming, which is it's like a prose book about a young girl's coming of age in Brooklyn. And a lot of her work focuses on those types of stories, but she's got other stuff that she writes. She has she's written for adults as well. When I talk to the people at Barnes & Noble, they're like, oh, wow, and so she's a known quantity among people who read a lot. The library community loves her. Whenever we discover a great author, we think the whole world should know that author. So she's fantastic.
So people aren't going to be able just to walk into that event.
No, there's a limited audience just because of the space that night on the 11th. So you do have to come in, sign up. The people who we're inviting have to RSVP. We'll have more information about that, but it's not a come one, come all. You can pack the library. The event the next day is certainly not open to the public. It's for the school district and their students and chaperones and teachers.
And this is going to be in what I call the gallery room upstairs on the second floor.
Yep.
Is that the right title?
Yeah, we call it the second floor gallery. Yeah. And here's another cool thing. My assistant had the idea of, so we host the Utica City School District Art Show every year, and they just took most of the art down last week. But through the course of working with that, my assistant thought, well, let's see if we can maybe get a unique artwork commissioned through Utica City School District's art teachers with students for this event. So they thought that was a great idea too. There's going to be a couple large format pieces of art that are going to be accompanying her talk at the library, and then we're going to bring them to MV the next day. I believe it's going to be, we don't know what medium it's going to be in, but we're excited to see what kids come up with using her work as inspiration.
So if somebody wants to go to the event, and it's June what?
June 11th, Tuesday night at 6 p.m.
So if people want to go to that, the thing to do is to go down to the library and sign up for, is it a raffle or?
Well, it's really like, right now we have, what we hope to have is 75 people sign up, and then we'll have to draw names. So you have to come to the library to sign up. If you want to see her, please come down and do that.
Okay. Chris Sagaas is our guest. We're talking about the Utica Public Library. When we come back, we are going to find out what he is reading. Short break, right back. And welcome back, everybody. Chris Sagaas is our guest. Chris is the director of the Utica Public Library, and library stuff is what we're talking about. Chris, when we talk about 60,000 books down there, you have access, though, through Mid-York to how many more?
Well, that's a great question. I'm sure it's in the hundreds of thousands. In addition to Mid-York, we also provide interlibrary loan service where we'll go outside of the region, across New York State, outside of the state, across the United States, to get books. And we actually still interlibrary loan DVDs for people. We don't purchase CDs anymore, but people still want to listen to certain things that they're used to listening to on CD, or they don't have a non-CD player, so we still will get those materials for people as well.
Mid-York just came out with a new app that impacts you guys, right?
Yeah, so if you go to Google or the Apple, whatever app store you go to, if you look for Mid-York Library System and search for it, that app, it definitely changes the game for us. I've been here almost 7 years, and we've been talking about getting an app that's current, up to date, and really usable for users. Anyway, that has a lot of utility. It's great. You can search for programming on it. You can see what books you have checked out. You can place requests all through an app. The funny thing is, the app is. We've used it, our staff have used it, a lot of people who have tested it out, so to speak, have said that it's a better way to search for titles and materials in our catalog than our online catalog. So that's another thing that the system will be looking at improving soon as well. But the app is really cool. If you just search for Mid-York Library System in your app store, Google or Apple, you can find it there and then download it. It's great. I use it all the time now.
Doesn't the app also let you look at your record as a reader?
Yeah, you can track the history of the things you've read. Our library catalog system does not track what people have checked out. Sometimes people ask that. I want to see we don't keep that. That's partly for privacy reasons, but you are able to work with the lists of things you've read, and you can store it on your own, but that's not data that's available to us.
But if I took a book out of the Utica Public Library and I had the app, and I took a book a week out, at the end of the year, I could find out what those books were.
I do think it allows you to track your reading history.
Yeah.
But that's not stored by the libraries. If you called me and asked me, hey Chris, what did I check out last November? If you returned it, I couldn't find out.
Yeah. There's no charge for that app?
No, the app is totally free.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are you reading?
So, well, I'm working through Jacqueline Woodson's books because I want to read as much as I possibly can. So, Brown Girl Dreaming is on my shelf right now. The thing that's come up a lot that I need to learn more about is artificial intelligence and AI, and what does it mean for libraries, but what does it mean for our world? So I actually got a book for Christmas from my brother and sister-in-law called Your Face Belongs to Us. It's by a New York Times tech reporter. I just started it, but it's got a hook. There's this company, this AI startup that essentially was developing some type of database where I think it would store all this information about people, and it was going to be made available to either other companies or law enforcement. So I'm already hooked, but I just started that last week. I can't wait to see what happens. But I feel like if you read about AI, it might change before the time I'm done reading this book. So that it hooked me in instantly. So
are you the kind of reader? I read a couple books at a time. Do you do that, or do you just read one at a time?
I usually only read one book at a time, but I still subscribe to magazines. That's one thing libraries, we have on the app through Mid-York, you can actually get through Overdrive magazines and download those. I don't like that reading experience. I actually like the thing in my hand. So I tend to read, like, at any given time, I probably have 5 or 6 periodicals, magazines that I'm working through. Sometimes I don't have the longest attention span for reading, so that's part of it. I like to read short things. I mean, meaty 25, 30-page articles are not like unheard of in the New Yorker, for example.
Right.
But yeah, I'm constantly reading. I'm looking at the Times, the Journal, the Athletic on my phone. So, I'm always kind of surrounding myself and putting information into me, and I guess whatever sticks, I can share with other people.
How does the library, the Utica Public Library, how do they decide what books to buy for their collection?
So all of our selections are specifically made by an individual. Our children's librarians, we look through review sources. We sometimes will, we like somebody to come in and say, hey, have you heard whatever? Have you heard of this book? If we don't have it in our catalog, we'll look it up, we'll look through the reviews, but every single thing that is selected is handpicked by professional staff in Utica Public Library, and most libraries. There are some value-added services through some of the people we buy materials from. If there's a bestseller list, it will automatically populate the things we order and send it to us. I mean, those are the things that we don't have to think as much about. We're going to get the Patterson book. We're going to get the most popular book right now is Kristen Hanna's The Women. We have tons of holds, tons of copies. We can't keep up with the demand for it. So that's another thing I do want to mention is that the system, because I appreciate you do mention Mid-York and the service they provide to all of our library users. We've significantly increased the funding system-wide to pay for downloadable ebooks and audiobooks that are still around 30 to 35% of the total circulation at Utica as well as other libraries. So as I was also saying before, we're always kind of looking at what do people want, where are they getting it, how can we best provide it for them, and then we have to make the decisions about how to afford it and how to deploy the money appropriately.
What about the decision on books to discard? You can't hang on to every book you've ever owned.
Exactly. So that's also part of our. I mean, we call it in the library field. It's called weeding. We'll look at timeliness. We'll look to see how long ago it circulated. We don't keep things on the shelf. I mean, we're going to probably keep every Shakespeare. We're going to keep every, Toni Morrison book. There are people who are part of the canon that continues to grow that we will make sure we will do our best to have a copy of their works, whether they've circulated in the last year or not. But if we have 17 books on a topic that was, we don't have every book on the last presidential election that was published around that time and then in the years since, partly because some of that, we make educated guesses and try to figure out, well, what's going to be the next hot topic. And sometimes our guessing isn't the best, and then those things will say, well, they didn't. What we tell our staff is that we want the book to earn its place on the shelf. So either it's accepted and talked about and revisited, or it's timely and important. And if it's not, and people don't really look for it anymore, it can't stay on the shelf. We're not going to build another library building.
We've only got 30 seconds left, but do you take requests from your patrons?
Yeah, people can always request a title. You can request, there's ways you can request through the app, but we get solicitations, whether publishers and authors will write us and ask us to add books, so people can always ask for something that they want. We do have some criteria. I mean, we're not going to buy the newest math textbook for every algebra student in the school system, for example, but we love hearing what people want, and then we try to get it for them.
Always good seeing you.
You as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for us this week. We'll be back next week. We'll do it all again. Don't forget cnyhomepage.com. There's lots of good stuff there. Until next time, take care of yourself, everybody.